Lin Ke, the school's delinquent leader, reckless, fighting like it's second nature, trusting no one but his fists. Cheng Yi, cold, scholarly top student, gentle as a breeze, the first to see past Lin Ke's thorny exterior. After getting punished, Lin Ke is forced to attend tutoring sessions with Cheng Yi. Hatred slowly turns to fondness, then love blooms in silence. Amidst difficult math problems, Cheng Yi once smiled and said, "You're not stupid, you just never had someone patient enough with you." And Lin Ke, trembling for the first time as he touched someone's cheek, confessed, "I don't know what love is, but if it's you, I want to try." They fell in love amidst pressure and darkness. But Cheng Yi's light faded faster than anyone could have expected. A heart condition took him away, just as their love began to blossom. In the letter he left behind, Cheng Yi wrote, "I don't need you to be great, I just need you to live, because as long as you're alive, my love isn't dead." The midday sun blazed fiercely, the school courtyard buzzing with cicadas and chatter. Lin Ke sat with his legs propped on a stone table, his shirt half untucked, a bright red lollipop hanging from his lips. His eyes narrowed as he glared at the kid who just stepped on his shoe. "Is your eye stuck to your ass or something?" Lin Ke leaned forward, his voice dripping with menace. The other person turned around. A crisp white shirt buttoned to the top, a shiny name tag around his neck, arms clutching thick textbooks, hair swaying lightly in the breeze, and a hand gently pushing up his glasses. His face showed no fear, just a frown of annoyance. "Your shoe was in the middle of the path. Don't blame others." Cheng Yi replied, his tone flat, neither hot nor cold. The air grew tense, taut as a bowstring. The surrounding students began to scatter. Lin Ke stepped closer, clicking his tongue. "Wanna try me?" Cheng Yi met his gaze without blinking. "I don't fight with idiots." A moment of silence. Then a loud crash as desks toppled. Someone screamed, thinking blood was about to spill. But no, it was just Lin Ke's lollipop being snatched away. Cheng Yi calmly walked past, tossing the lollipop into the trash before leaving, lazily throwing a parting shot at Lin Ke. "The way you talk is just like that lollipop, pathetic beyond words." "Damn it, who thought it'd be a good idea to make me study with that jerk?" "Shh!" Lin Ke muttered, kicking the leg of a chair hard. The desk let out a sharp clack of protest. Across from him, Cheng Yi sat upright, pulling out his books without even glancing at Lin Ke. "If you want to get out of here early, sit still and do your work." His voice was flat, cold as ice. Lin Ke smirked, leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed. "Who do you think you are? My dad?" Cheng Yi looked up, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "No, I'm the one who has to put up with you for 2 hours every afternoon because you got into a fight at school." "Put up with me? Do you even know who I am to talk like that?" Cheng Yi slowly flipped a page in his book, his tone unchanged. "I know, the school's delinquent leader, the worst grades in our year. You fight more than you study. But now you're stuck here with me, forced to get tutored. So who's the real, pitiful one?" Lin Ke clenched his fists, his face flushing with anger. But for some reason, instead of throwing a punch, he let out a dry laugh. "Someone as smart as you probably never got beat up." Cheng Yi looked at him, a faint smile appearing for the first time. "And you probably never had to learn math formulas with a muscle-brained guy." Lin Ke froze. Then he sighed, slowly opening his book. "Fine, if you're so great, teach me, scholar." The first afternoon of tutoring was so tense you could slice it into chunks. Lin Ke slouched in his chair, long legs stretched out, resting on the bar under the desk. His careless, defiant posture made it seem like this was his backyard, not Class 12A1, the school's elite class. On the other side of the desk, Cheng Yi quietly flipped through his book. The thin pages rustled steadily, like the ticking of a clock in the unair-conditioned room. He said nothing, didn't look at Lin Ke, just followed the teacher's instructions. Tutor him, 2 hours per session, 3 sessions a week until the end of the semester. "Hey, you planning to play mute?" Lin Ke spoke up, his voice laced with mockery. "I didn't come here to watch you flip pages. Teach me." Cheng Yi didn't look up, replying slowly, "If you actually want to learn, get your notebook out. I don't have time to waste on someone who isn't serious." Lin Ke laughed, that familiar half-smirk carrying both defiance and disdain. He yanked a notebook from his bag and slammed it onto the desk. "There. Teach me, scholar. Let's see how long you can stand me." Cheng Yi ignored the provocation. He pulled out an algebra problem and slid it across the desk. Try this. It's basic. Solve it, and I'll move on. Lin Ke stared at the problem like it was an alien creature. He picked up a pen, scribbled a few numbers, then erased them. Minutes later, the paper was still blank. Too hard? Cheng Yi asked, his tone even, without a hint of mockery. No, I just don't like math, he replied, tossing the pen onto the desk. Don't like it, or don't understand it? Lin Ke turned, his eyes narrowing. You want to die? Cheng Yi remained calm, looking at him. I'm just stating the truth. You don't understand it, but you're too proud to admit it. That's why you're always at the bottom of the class. A surge of heat rushed to Lin Ke's head. He stood up, the desk and chair screeching loudly. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? But Cheng Yi stayed seated, his gaze unwavering. The only one still trying to teach an idiot something. Those words cut like a knife, not sharp, but deep. Lin Ke stood still for a long moment, then sat back down, silent. He picked up the pen and started writing for real this time. His handwriting was messy, jagged, the formulas completely wrong. Cheng Yi said nothing, just gently corrected each mistake. Time passed slowly, the cicadas outside the window growing quieter. Hey, Lin Ke suddenly spoke after nearly an hour. Don't you get tired? Teaching someone like me. Cheng Yi looked up, a faint, unreadable glimmer in his eyes. I do, but I think it's worth it. Worth what? Because it's the first time I've seen you sit still and write something on paper. As Lin Ke stared at him for a long while, then he propped his chin on his hand, his voice softer. You're the first person to talk to me this long without swearing or running away scared. Cheng Yi gave a small smile but didn't reply. Inside, something stirred gently. Not quite an emotion, not yet a feeling. Just a flicker, like light slipping through a narrow crack, illuminating a dark room that had been shut for too long. The session ended. Cheng Yi packed up his books, ready to leave. Lin Ke suddenly asked, You coming tomorrow? Cheng Yi paused, then nodded. Yes. Lin Ke turned away, hiding the tiny smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. In the courtyard, the cicadas still hummed, but in the classroom, something had quietly taken root. The ceiling fan creaked above the old classroom. Afternoon sunlight slanted through the window, casting shimmering streaks on the dusty desk. Lin Ke plopped into his chair, tossing his backpack onto the desk like it was trash. Beside him, Cheng Yi was already seated, books neatly arranged, pens and rulers perfectly aligned. You think you're a multiplication table or something? Lin Ke snapped, glaring at the rows of numbers on Cheng Yi's paper like they were ancient script. Cheng Yi didn't bother replying, just slid a workbook over. This problem, try it. I already told you I suck at math. That's why you need to do it. Lin Ke gripped his pen tightly. His calloused fingers, rough from fighting, held the pen like it might snap in half. He stared at the equation. 3x plus 2, x minus 5 equals 0. Solve for x, right? His voice was cautious. Yes. Cheng Yi replied briefly, his eyes expectant. Lin Ke frowned, biting his lip. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed, and the paper remained blank. Cheng Yi sighed, took the paper back, and wrote 2 short lines. He handed it back, pointing at each step. To find the solution, set each expression to 0. 3x plus 2 equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0. Solve each one. Got it? Lin Ke muttered to himself. 3x plus 2 equals 0, so x equals 9 is 2/3, and x minus 5 equals 0, so x equals 5. Correct. Cheng Yi looked up at him, a hint of surprise in his eyes. What? Lin Ke furrowed his brow. Didn't expect you to get it right. Cheng Yi's tone was matter-of-fact, devoid of praise. Thwack. Lin Ke slammed his pen onto the desk, his eyes blazing. Are you mocking me? Cheng Yi didn't flinch, just looked straight at him. No, I'm just surprised. You always use I'm stupid as an excuse to not try. Lin Ke stood up, his chair falling back. But this time, he didn't slam the desk. He walked to the window, silent. The afternoon breeze blew in, tuzzling his sweat-dampened hair. After a long pause, he spoke without looking back. In middle school, I turned in blank tests 3 times in a row. The teacher called me trash who couldn't learn. My classmates laughed, saying I was only good for fighting. His voice was hoarse, like sand grinding in his throat. Since then, I stopped studying. Not because I'm stupid, but because I knew. Even if I tried, no one would care. Behind him, the sound of writing stopped. Cheng Yi stood up, walking over but keeping a safe distance. He spoke softly, almost a whisper. I don't care what anyone said to you before, but right now, I'm here, and I know you're not stupid. Lin Ke turned around, his eyes slightly stunned. Those words, oddly, didn't sting at all. Cheng Yi bent down, picked up the fallen chair, and set it back at the desk. Sit down. We have 5 more problems. Hey, Lin Ke called after him, hesitating. Why do you want to help me? Cheng Yi didn't turn back. Because if I don't, I'll have to study with you for another week. I'd rather solve 100 problems instead. Lin Ke let out a chuckle. His voice carried a mix of mockery and a rare warmth. You really are the type who's smart but cold as stone, and yet I don't hate you. And I, Cheng Yi flipped his book, cutting him off, have never taught anyone as stubborn as you. 2 people, 2 opposites, sat across from each other in the fading golden light. Neither spoke again, but the sound of pens scratching paper and the steady breathing of 2 17-year-olds seemed to blend together in a strange harmony. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Lin Ke watched Cheng Yi's silhouette leave the classroom. The afternoon breeze blew in through the window, flipping the unfinished notebook pages. Under the slanting sunlight, the numbers on the paper shimmered oddly. That day, Lin Ke didn't slam the desk, didn't argue, didn't storm off halfway through. The first page, blank for years, was finally written on again. Night. Lin Ke lay on the rooftop of the old apartment complex, his back pressed against the rough concrete studded with gravel, staring at the crescent moon hanging in the ashy sky. The city at night wasn't exactly quiet. Distant car horns still echoed faintly, but to him, everything felt stifled. He didn't know why he'd climbed up here. Maybe he felt suffocated, or maybe he just wanted to escape everything for a while. But as he lay down, the first image that flashed in his mind was Cheng Yi. That guy, is he reading right now? Or dozing off at his desk like usual? Lin Ke smirked to himself. You've really lost it, Lin Ke. Thinking about a guy who's only taught you a few math problems. Cheng Yi's voice seemed to echo in his ears. That's why you need to do it. I know you're not stupid. Those words, seemingly cold, made him feel seen, acknowledged. He tried to forget that feeling every second, every minute. Lin Ke raised a hand to cover his eyes, feeling a stinging sensation at the bridge of his nose. He hated this kind of softness, hated how thinking of Cheng Yi's calm gaze made his heart twist. He wasn't this weak. He didn't crave a glance, a word, an afternoon after school. You really are the type who's smart but cold as stone, and yet I don't hate you. Lin Ke closed his eyes, his sigh blending with the wind rustling through the old roof tiles. If he could see Cheng Yi right now, he wouldn't say anything. He'd just want to stand there for a moment. As if that person's presence was enough to make him feel less empty. Damn it. He didn't want to admit it, but it was clear he was missing Cheng Yi. The next day, when they met again, on the surface, Lin Ke still acted tough. But inside, his heart was a mess, like a crow's nest. The sky drizzled lightly. The kind of rain that didn't soak your clothes but weighed heavy on your heart. Lin Ke parked his bike at the school gate, brushing the rain from his hair, then lightly kicked the familiar steps. His heart beat oddly. Not fast, but not normal either. He knew why. The classroom was the same as ever, the ceiling fan still creaking, the desks still dusty from neglect. But today, Cheng Yi arrived early. He was reading a book, his white shirt still pristine despite the rain, fingers holding a pen, eyes glued to the pages as if nothing in the world was more interesting. Lin Ke stood at the door for a moment. His heart skipped a beat. It's him. Still him. Damn it, still that same posture, that quiet way he bows his head that makes me want to mess it up just to feel less annoyed. He coughed lightly, just enough for Cheng Yi to look up. On time. A miracle. Cheng Yi's voice was the same. Flat. No surprise. No joy. No disappointment. Lin Ke shot him a light glare, walking in and plopping into his chair as usual, trying to act indifferent. I had nothing better to do, so I came, not because I missed you or anything. Cheng Yi didn't respond, just slid the workbook over. Page 7, System of Equations. Do it. Lin Ke let out a dry chuckle, taking the paper, but his fingers brushed against Cheng Yi's hand for a split second. Just a moment, but it felt like someone had squeezed his heart. It's over, Lin Ke. You're done for. He bowed his head, pretending to read the problem, but his vision blurred. The rain outside fell steadily. Neither spoke again, but inside Lin Ke, it was louder than he could bear. Don't stay silent. Say something, Cheng Yi. Call me an idiot if you want. Just don't let me sit here missing you like this. But Cheng Yi remained quiet, as if he knew nothing. Only his fingers paused briefly when Lin Ke's hand lingered nearby. Lin Ke was scribbling away when the sound of flip-flops echoed in the hallway. He looked up just as the classroom door swung open. Someone walked in. Not a teacher, not a familiar student either. It was a girl. Long hair, wearing a uniform from another school, holding a black book bag, her eyes scanning the room before landing on Cheng Yi. Yi. Her voice was soft but clear enough for both boys in the room to hear. Lin Ke froze. Cheng Yi looked up, startled. Min Dao? The girl stepped in, a faint smile on her lips. It's been a while. My mom got transferred back to the city. I'm transferring schools too, starting next week. The atmosphere in the room shifted abruptly. For some reason, Lin Ke's chest suddenly ached. Min Dao? Who is she? Why does she call Yi so intimately? Cheng Yi, for the first time, lost his composure. He stood up, frowning slightly. Why didn't you let me know? I thought. Do we still have anything to tell each other? Min Dao interrupted, her gaze tinged with coldness. I just wanted to say hi, and to tell you I won't bother you anymore. The air froze. Min Dao placed a piece of paper on Cheng Yi's desk, then turned and left without looking at anyone else. The door closed. Lin Ke glanced over, seeing Cheng Yi standing like a statue. His face was pale. The paper sat on the desk, one corner damp from the rain. Lin Ke swallowed hard. His mind flooded with questions, but he didn't ask. He just smirked, trying to keep his voice as normal as possible. Ex-girlfriend? Cheng Yi didn't answer. He just tucked the paper into his desk drawer. The silence was his response, and it hurt more than any words could. That afternoon, Lin Ke didn't go straight home. He wandered the streets like a lost soul, the girl's voice still echoing in his ears. I won't bother you anymore. That meant they were once very close. Very near. Close enough to bother. And the way Cheng Yi looked at her, it wasn't the look you give a stranger, nor a passerby. In this world, Lin Ke hated nothing more than feeling like an outsider. The next day, Cheng Yi arrived at class early as usual. Lin Ke showed up late. He didn't look at anyone, didn't say a word. He tossed his backpack onto his chair, propped his legs on the desk, and put on earphones, though no music played. Cheng Yi glanced over briefly. Not doing your work? Not in the mood, Lin Ke replied curtly, staring out the window. Stop making excuses. It's not an excuse. Lin Ke yanked off his earphones, turning to him, his voice sharper. I just don't want to study with someone who has a past they won't explain. Cheng Yi froze. What do you mean? I mean, if you already have someone, don't look at me like I'm special, Lin Ke sneered. I may be dumb, but I'm not blind. Silence. Heavy. Cheng Yi held his pen but didn't write. His voice was lower than usual. Are you jealous? Lin Ke shot up, slamming his fist on the desk, his eyes blazing. Screw that word. The classroom door closed softly. That softness hurt Lin Ke more than a punch ever could. Cheng Yi left the classroom, his white shirt damp with rain, streaked with wet patches. He didn't run, didn't shield himself. He just walked through the school courtyard, step by step, as if slowing down would let all the emotions he was swallowing spill over. Rain fell on his hair, his eyes stinging. But it didn't hurt as much as the words. I may be dumb, but I'm not blind. It's not that I didn't want to tell you, Lin Ke. I was afraid if I did, you'd pull away from this, leaving me behind again. The old hospital appeared before him, though he didn't remember how he got there. All he knew was the sharp pain in his chest, starting at the intersection. His hand clutched the front of his shirt, his breathing ragged. A nurse saw him and panicked. Cheng Yi, why are you... The sound of his heartbeat pounded in his ears like war drums. An ambulance siren wailed as he was rushed into the emergency room. In the moment he faded, his last thought was, I didn't get to tell Lin Ke that Min Dao is just an old scar, and now it's only him. 3 years ago, Cheng Yi back then wasn't like he is now. He was thin, quiet, almost invisible in the noisy crowd. A top student, the son of tears, the model kid that no one bothered talking to unless they needed help with homework. Min Dao was the first to call him by name in front of the whole class. Hey Yi, lend me your physics book. Her voice was clear, her gaze straightforward, without malice or disdain. Cheng Yi looked up for the first time in months, since the day the class had ostracized him for being too good at studying. From then on, Min Dao entered his life like a ray of light. She said he was smart but naive, dragged him to the playground, made him eat ice cream even though he didn't like sweets. For the first time, someone didn't hate him for his grades. For the first time, someone stayed by his side, without asking for something in return. He started to believe. In her eyes, her smile, the afternoons under the tree, listening to her ramble about nonsense. He thought maybe this was what liking someone felt like, but it all crumbled one rainy afternoon. That day, Cheng Yi passed by the teacher's office. He overheard Mindao's voice, unmistakable. Hanging out with him makes it easy to get bonus points. Plus, he has connections in the administration, useful when I need a favor. Her giggle mixed with another girl's voice. So, do you like him? Like him? Mindao burst out laughing. Get real. That type is only good for using. Cheng Yi stood behind the door, his heart feeling like it had been smashed with a rock. He didn't cry, he wasn't angry, he just couldn't understand. How could someone who held his hand through his darkest days let go so easily? He didn't see her again after that day. Didn't ask either. But from that day, Cheng Yi began to grow cold, little by little, layer by layer. He studied harder, became quieter, and grew harsher with his own emotions. So when Mindao suddenly appeared that day, calling his name like nothing had happened, the heart he thought had frozen over suddenly throbbed like an unhealed scar. But Cheng Yi didn't let anyone see. He didn't let Lin Ke see. Because he knew. If he showed weakness, this time it wouldn't just be a crack, it would shatter completely. A friend's words echoed in his mind. Hey, I think Cheng Yi's in the hospital. Saw a girl taking care of him, probably an ex. Lin Ke's heart felt like it had been punched. He sped off on his bike, no helmet, no brakes, racing to the hospital like a madman. His head buzzed, his eyes were bloodshot. Part of it was because of Mindao, but mostly because of his worry for Cheng Yi. That girl. It's her again. The one in the hallway yesterday. The way Yi looked at her, hesitant, that past he didn't tell me about. He arrived, sprinting straight to the emergency room. The red light was still on. Outside, Mindao sat, her face anxious, holding a cold compress. What are you doing here? Lin Ke's voice rang out, dry and harsh. Mindao looked up, surprised. But before she could speak, Lin Ke stepped closer, snatched the compress from her hand, and threw it into the nearby trash can. He doesn't need you anymore. Who are you? Mindao stood up, stepping back, her voice on the verge of defiance. I'm the one by his side now. Lin Ke growled each word, his glare cutting through the air like a knife. The one who's seen him study, laugh, and hurt, not someone who only shows up when he's in the hospital to act concerned. The door opened. A nurse wheeled Cheng Yi out, his face pale, lips dry, eyes still dazed. The moment Lin Ke saw him, he rushed over, brushing the nurse aside to help Cheng Yi onto the bed himself. I've got him. His rough hands gripped Cheng Yi's shoulders, gentler than ever before. Mindao stood there, stunned. No one looked at her anymore. Later, in the hospital room, Cheng Yi struggled to open his eyes, seeing Lin Ke leaning down to place a cold compress on his forehead. His breathing was weak, but he managed to whisper. You came. Yeah, I came. Lin Ke's voice was low, no trace of his usual arrogance. Why? Because seeing you like this hurts me more than it hurts you. He exhaled sharply. Seeing you lying there while someone else worries, I couldn't take it. Cheng Yi gave a faint, genuine smile. He closed his eyes again, murmuring as if in a dream. It's the first time someone's been jealous over me. In the pale white light of the hospital room, Cheng Yi's breathing steadied, though his eyes remained hazy. Lin Ke sat beside him, still holding his wrist, cold but still pulsing. After a long silence, he finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what love is. The room fell silent. Only the faint beeping of the heart monitor remained. But if it's you, he paused, leaning closer, whispering as if afraid of hearing himself, I want to try. Cheng Yi opened his eyes. His gaze was still as a lake, but the corner of his mouth trembled slightly, as if he wanted to say something but held back. Lin Ke reached out, clumsily brushing Cheng Yi's hair back. Don't pass out again. I can't handle seeing you like this another time. Cheng Yi smiled, light as a breath. All right, let's try. Sunlight filtered through the white curtains, fragile like golden threads floating in the air. A moment of silence passed, then their eyes met. No words were spoken, but the quiet air grew warmer with each second. About yesterday, Cheng Yi began, but Lin Ke cut him off by leaning down. Lips met lips. No hesitation, no permission. The first kiss of their 18 years, rough, clumsy, but burning. Lin Ke cradled the back of Cheng Yi's neck, pulling him closer, while Cheng Yi could only grip his collar, as if letting go would make him disappear. The sound of their heartbeats drowned out the monitor. Their ragged breaths melded into one. Lips brushed lips, teeth lightly clashing, all instinct. Then, the door burst open. A piercing scream jolted them apart. Lin Ke whipped around, still pinning Cheng Yi beneath him. Standing in the doorway was his little sister, holding a bag of porridge, eyes wide as leches, mouth agape. "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Finally! Finally!" She jumped up and down like she'd won the lottery, raising her phone as if to live stream. "Wait, you guys actually kissed? Like, for real? Oh my gosh, I've been shipping you two so hard." Lin Ke roared, "Get out, now!" Cheng Yi's ears burned red, while the girl ran off, still shouting, "I've been shipping you guys since the day you argued at the school gate. You can't hide from a cupid like me." The door slammed shut. Lin Ke stood frozen, hair a mess, shirt wrinkled. Cheng Yi lay there, lips slightly swollen, looking at him, torn between laughing and burying himself in the ground. Cheng Yi spoke first, his face still flushed. "So, she knows now." Lin Ke let out a heavy breath, collapsing into the chair, covering his face. "I didn't expect my first kiss to have an audience." Lin Ke, her name sounded soft, sly, yet still had that nation's little sister vibe. Nicknamed Ni Khan or Ni. For extra spice, she dubbed herself the captain of the Lin Ke ship, complete with a notebook full of their moments. For example, according to my records, you two have looked at each other 72 times this week, touched hands 5 times, kissed once, just one official confession away from being a couple. The living room of the Lin household was unusually lively. In the center, Lin Ke dragged the coffee table out, setting up a whiteboard nearly as tall as her. Scrawled in bold red marker, "Emergency meeting. Officially declare the two old men's relationship." Lin Ke and Cheng Yi were forced to sit side by side on the sofa, their faces blank like they'd been dragged to a 6 a.m. tutoring session. Ni stood in front of the board, holding a long pointer like a homeroom teacher. "Dear parties involved," her voice boomed. "After months of dropping hints and secret pining, you finally shared a passionate kiss in the hospital. So I ask, are you ready to publicly declare your relationship to me?" "No." Lin Ke glared, growling. "Yes." Cheng Yi nodded coolly. Ni flipped the board. "Wrong answer. You have no right to refuse. Please sign the love certificate." She held out an A4 sheet with pre-printed text. "This certifies that Lin Ke and Cheng Yi have officially entered a romantic relationship, endorsed by ship captain Lin Ke." Below it, 2 lines, signature, and Lin Ke's eyes widened. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Your sister," Ni replied nonchalantly, "and your biggest fan. Also, the one who kept quiet about you sneaking glances at Yi while he solved math problems over 10 times last week, and the one who's been shipping you since the day you fought over a compass. So, sign it, both of you, now." Cheng Yi pressed his lips, stealing a glance at Lin Ke. Lin Ke scratched his head, looking away, his face red. Finally, they signed. Lin Ke's was a messy scrawl. Cheng Yi's was neat and precise. Ni snatched the paper, holding it up like a trophy. "Yes! Officially a couple. I'm the first witness to this love story." She jumped like she'd won the lottery. "Wait," Cheng Yi suddenly spoke up. He turned to Lin Ke, tilting his head. "So, we're really together now?" Lin Ke hesitated, then wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. "Yeah, boyfriends, with a proper certificate." Ni clutched her chest, squealing, "Oh my god, what drama can match this?" Lin Ke's birthday. No big cake, no extravagant party. Just a small second-floor room, warm yellow light casting shadows on the walls, and 2 cups of light liquor mixed with soda. Cheng Yi sat on the edge of the bed, handing over a carefully wrapped gift. No patterns, just a red ribbon. Lin Ke took it, tearing open the paper. Inside was a crisp white shirt, cool fabric, high-collared and modest, a style he'd never imagined wearing. "This." Lin Ke scratched his head. "Doesn't really feel like my style." "Yeah." Cheng Yi looked up. "But I think you'd look good in it. Try it on." Before he could reply, Cheng Yi handed him a light brown notebook. "And this." He opened the first page. Inside was a pencil sketch. Lin Ke asleep at a desk, one arm around a book, hair messy, eyes closed but still carrying that defiant air. "When did you draw this?" Lin Ke asked, his voice rough. "The day you fell asleep in the library." Cheng Yi answered, still looking at him. "I didn't want you to forget how peaceful you looked." Lin Ke didn't speak. He poured more liquor, taking a long sip. The warmth spread down his throat, then to his chest. Why go through all this trouble? Cheng Yi didn't answer immediately. He poured himself a glass, downed it in one gulp, then looked straight into Lin Ke's eyes. I don't know what love is, but if it's you, I want to try. The silence thickened. Lin Ke stared at him for a long time. The lamp swayed, the liquor rushing to his head. He leaned in. This time there was no hesitation, no restraint. His lips met Cheng Yi's again, but this time slower, deeper, like he wanted to etch every moment into memory. His hands slid to the back of Cheng Yi's neck, tightening. Their breaths quickened, the sound of fabric brushing. Ragged breaths mingled with the steady thump of hearts. They fell onto the bed, lips still locked. The white shirt dropped to the wooden floor. A page in the sketchbook fluttered, catching the faint glow of the lamp in the dim light. The curtains swayed gently in the night breeze, the sound of friction and their breaths intertwining, leaving two people with a love fiercer than ever before. Everything blurred like a watercolor painting. Only breaths, touches, and the liquor's sharp edge remained, no longer gentle. Morning light slipped through the curtains, illuminating Lin Ke's sleepy face. The smell of whiskey, sketchbook paper, and a faint scent on the pillow, Cheng Yi's scent, lingered like a dream between reality and intoxication. He rolled over. His arm reached for the other person, but found nothing. The white shirt was now neatly folded on the desk. The sketchbook was closed too, as if last night's chaos of kisses and drunken haze had never happened. Lin Ke sat up, a slight dizziness washing over him. He looked around, no sign of Cheng Yi. He was about to head downstairs when his phone rang. It was Ni. Brother, Cheng Yi's been admitted to the hospital. Donghua Hospital emergency room. Lin Ke burst in like a raging storm. Sweat still clung to his forehead, his hands trembling. Outside the emergency room, Mindao sat, her face ashen. In her hand was a phone, its screen still on, likely a call from Cheng Yi's family. He got soaked in the rain yesterday. He must have felt unwell but didn't say anything. This morning his heart seized and he passed out at home. Mindao sobbed, her voice breaking. Lin Ke clenched his fists, his eyes burning red. He'd been with Cheng Yi all night and he hadn't noticed a thing. He'd slept beside him while Cheng Yi silently endured the pain. The door opened. The nurse wheeled out the bed, Cheng Yi lying still, face pale, lips colorless. The monitor beeped coldly with unfeeling numbers. Cheng Yi! Lin Ke stepped forward, but another hand grabbed him. It was Mindao. Don't go near him. Her voice trembled, but was icy. Who do you think you are in his life to share his pain? Lin Ke froze. His heart pounded erratically. Not a lover, not a best friend, just a thug who'd fallen for someone like Cheng Yi. He watched Cheng Yi being wheeled away, helplessness crashing over him like a tidal wave. For a moment, he wondered, if Cheng Yi didn't wake up, how would he go on? Cheng Yi was moved to the recovery room. The doctor said he needed rest, no emotional stress. But less than half an hour later, Mindao pushed the door open, holding a thermos of hot porridge and a wet towel. She sat by the bed, her gaze unnervingly gentle. You're always so stubborn. You know your body's weak, yet you got soaked and stayed over at someone else's place. Mindao's voice was soft, but sharper than a blade wrapped in velvet. Do you know the housekeeper nearly fainted when she saw you unconscious in the room this morning? Or were you trying to prove someone else can make you feel safer than I can? Cheng Yi opened his eyes, exhausted, his voice hoarse. Stop talking. Do you think I don't know? Mindao laughed. Lin Ke, it's him, right? Cheng Yi turned his face away. He didn't speak, but silence is sometimes the loudest confirmation. Mindao stood, stepping closer to the bed, whispering, You once said I was the only one there when you got sick. I thought I was the reason you kept going. But it was all an illusion. Her voice cracked. And you, do you really think that punk can protect you? When he doesn't even understand his own heart? Outside the door, Lin Ke had been standing there, hearing every word. His fist hit the wall, drawing blood. Mindao walked out, startled to see him at the threshold, but her eyes didn't waver. I once pulled Cheng Yi from the abyss, and you're just the latecomer. Can you handle seeing him fall back into it? Lin Ke didn't answer. He just pushed the door open gently. His gaze settled on the pale face sleeping peacefully. He sat by the bed, taking Cheng Yi's hand, ice cold but still faintly warm. I'm sorry, he said softly, for leaving you alone. Then, As if he couldn't hold back anymore, Lin Ke bowed his head, resting his forehead on Cheng Yi's hand. His hair fell, hiding his bloodshot eyes. The hospital door opened again. Nini stood there with 2 bags of porridge, her school uniform jacket speckled with rain. Her eyes quickly scanned the room. Cheng Yi lying there, her brother silently bowing his head, and most importantly, Min Dao standing a bit too close. "Oh, Sister Dao, still here?" Nini smiled, sweet as candy. Min Dao flinched slightly, giving a faint smile. "Of course, I'm just worried about him. He needs someone to take care of him." "Really?" Nini set the porridge bags down. "That's great, because from now on, my brother and I will take turns caring for Cheng Yi. We live close to the hospital, super convenient." Min Dao frowned. "You think I don't belong here?" Nini blinked, tilting her head, her voice still sugary. "You're pretty, smart, and sharp-tongued. But you know, people like you love playing the savior. But the main character, he doesn't need saving. He needs love." The air grew heavy. Min Dao froze for a moment. She realized a little girl had just subtly kicked her out. Nini smiled, pulling a chair for Lin Ke to sit properly, then resting a hand on his shoulder, speaking loudly enough. "My brother's not good with sappy words, but he's the only one who ever raced across the city in the middle of the night for a text saying he's in the hospital. I think that's enough." Min Dao bit her lip, nodding slightly. "I see." She turned and left without another word, the door clicking shut behind her. Nini turned to Cheng Yi, grinning with squinted eyes. The ship captains dealt with the obstacle. "So what's next for you two?" Cheng Yi looked at her, then at Lin Ke. Lin Ke lifted his head, eyes still red. In that moment, Cheng Yi spoke. "I don't know what love is, but if it's you, I want to try. Do you remember? Right here in this hospital, my heart, you stole it." After that hospital stay, Cheng Yi was like a different person. He still came to class on time, still sat by the window, where he once said, "This spot gets just enough sun to keep me from dozing off." Still flipped pages with his left hand, still marked notes with a black pen and red underlining as if focused. But it was all a mask, worn too skillfully. The sidelong glances that once flustered Lin Ke were gone. The soft voice behind him that turned his face red during afternoon classes, gone. Cheng Yi was still there, right beside him, yet impossibly distant. The space, less than an arm's length, felt like a transparent, icy barrier, unbreakable. Every time Lin Ke turned, his eyes met a silent Cheng Yi, head bowed, detached. Not once did he look up, as if 100, 1,000 turns wouldn't change that. Whenever Lin Ke's hand brushed Cheng Yi's under the desk, Cheng Yi would pull away, not hurriedly, not awkwardly, but deliberately, as if that hand had never gripped his tightly on a rainy afternoon on the rooftop, as if it had never held on with a force that lingered in memory. Lin Ke once thought he was imagining things, thought maybe he was overly sentimental, conjuring a tender gaze, a gentle call of his name. But no, he couldn't fool himself anymore. The way Cheng Yi had looked at him, it was never the look of a classmate. No one looks at a classmate with a gaze so soft it brings tears. No one says a name like they're afraid it might break in their throat. But that gaze was gone, extinguished like a lamp running out of oil, fading silently in the night without a sound. All that remained was a perfect Cheng Yi, polite when asked, obedient when answering, living as if he'd never known someone named Lin Ke. But Lin Ke knew. He knew Cheng Yi was acting, desperately, because Cheng Yi no longer argued with him over geometry problems, no longer fought for the blue marker Lin Ke liked, no longer frowned when Lin Ke laughed too loud in literature class, no longer anything. Even the afternoons they'd spent huddled together on the rooftop, sharing a cold sandwich and listening to the same old song, gone. It was as if none of it had ever happened, like a dream cut off just as someone was about to confess love. One rainy day, rain poured down the tin roof like the heavens were angry. The sky was a thick gray, heavy with moisture. It started as the dismissal bell rang. Lin Ke stood at the school gate holding a small umbrella. He knew Cheng Yi had cleanup duty that day. He'd planned it, knowing Cheng Yi would be the last to leave, giving him an excuse to share the umbrella and talk. But Cheng Yi stepped out of the classroom, saw him. He stopped, just for a split second, then turned heading down a side path, walking straight, no words, no glance, no pretense of not seeing, just seeing, then avoiding like something he shouldn't touch. A mistake once picked up, now paid for with cold oblivion. Lin Ke stood frozen in the rain. His hand gripped the umbrella handle until his knuckles whitened. Rain seeped into his collar, chilling him, but he didn't bother shielding himself. The umbrella slipped off his shoulder, water dripping from its edge onto his shirt and back. He didn't move. He only knew he'd been avoided like a stranger. No, not even a stranger. At least a stranger would nod in passing. That night, Lin Ke stood outside Cheng Yi's house. No call, no text, no sound. He just stood there, silent as a shadow, under an old banyan tree. The rain hadn't fully stopped. Each drop falling from the leaves onto his shoulder felt like a stone. He tilted his head up to the second-floor window, Cheng Yi's room. The light was on. A faint silhouette showed through the white curtains, silent proof that he was there. But no matter how long he waited, no matter how the light burned his eyes, the door stayed closed. Then the light went out. A rejection without words, cold as ice. Inside, Cheng Yi lay on his bed, clutching a crumpled prescription slip, the ink smudged from his trembling hands. He couldn't sleep. His chest ached as if weighed down by a boulder. Not from his heart condition, but from fear. Fear of not waking up one day. If the surgery fails, you might not wake up. He was 18. He'd never lived long enough to call someone his first love. He'd only just learned what liking someone felt like. And now he had to face death. What scared him most wasn't death itself. It was leaving Lin Ke waiting in vain. What if Lin Ke kept waiting? What if he never woke up to say goodbye? No. Better to make Lin Ke hate him. Make him think Cheng Yi was a jerk. Let him love someone else. Someone healthy, not popping heart pills daily. Someone who wouldn't leave him standing in the rain like a fool. Someone who could stay by his side long enough to see him grow old. But he didn't expect. Lin Ke wouldn't let go. From the next day, a carton of milk and a pastry appeared in Cheng Yi's desk. At first with short notes. Didn't eat breakfast, did you? This isn't that good, but don't throw it away. Cheng Yi didn't reply, but he didn't throw them out either. He took them home, put them in the fridge, untouched. By the 7th day, the handwritten note was smudged with ink from the rain. I don't get why you're avoiding me, but if it's because you're tired, I can wait. If it's because you don't like me anymore, I'll still wait until you truly hate me. Cheng Yi's hands shook, dropping the note. That night, he cried. A week later, he went for a checkup alone, telling no one. Lin Ke never imagined he'd stand outside a cardiology clinic, holding a medical report, his whole body trembling like a leaf in the wind. Cheng Yi, congenital heart disease, controlled stage, life-threatening if stress persists. The words were etched like a knife into his vision. He read it over and over, unable to believe it. Since when? Since when had Cheng Yi lived with a damaged heart, yet calmly solved math problems, smiled at his teasing, patiently taught him tough chemistry formulas? Since when had he grown used to pain without a sound? He didn't remember how he got to the hospital. Only that when he pushed open the room door, the white hallway seemed to shake with each step. The antiseptic smell hit his stomach, making it churn. His head spun. Cheng Yi was there, frailer, thinner than before. The light green hospital gown hung loose on his narrow shoulders, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep, a white bandage still on his left hand from the IV. He looked up and saw Lin Ke. That gaze was still gentle, but filled with panic. Lin Ke, why are you here? Lin Ke didn't speak. He looked at Cheng Yi, then at the crumpled report in his hand. The truth, the lies, the pretense of strength. Are you insane? The shout exploded, shattering the quiet. Why didn't you tell me anything? Cheng Yi flinched, his eyes wavering. His hands trembled, nearly spilling the water cup by the bed. I didn't want you to be tied down. His voice was raspy, each word scraped from his throat. I didn't want to be a burden. Lin Ke stepped forward. His hands gripped Cheng Yi's shoulders, hard enough to make him lean back slightly. So you think avoiding me lifts that burden? I'd rather be dragged down with you than live without you. Cheng Yi froze. He couldn't respond. In the next second, he was pulled into a warm chest. Lin Ke's arms tightened as if to fuse their heartbeats. The kiss came suddenly, mingling with tears. Not gentle like their secret stairwell kisses. Not hesitant like when they weren't sure of each other's feelings. It was fierce, passionate, trembling like two souls who drowned too long, finally breathing again. Cheng Yi tried to pull away, not because he didn't want to, but because he feared dissolving in this happiness. But Lin Ke didn't let go. He kissed Cheng Yi's lips, his cheeks, the small scar on his collarbone. "I won't let you go anywhere else," he whispered, his breath hot against his ear. "If you're weak, I'll be strong for you. If your heart can't take it, let mine beat for you." Cheng Yi broke down. He'd never cried this much, not from illness, not from fear of death, but from feeling held. Not out of pity, but love. That night, they stayed in Lin Ke's small room. No extra words. No promises needed. Just their hands clasped tight. Two bodies touching for the first time without fear. Only lingering kisses, eyes brimming with the will to live. Warm yellow light spilled onto the old wall. Blankets tangled. The window cracked open, night breeze drifting in. Their breaths intertwined. It wasn't just a night of bodies. It was the night that marked a turning point, from two broken hearts now pieced together as one. The days that followed flew like a summer wind. Cheng Yi returned to class, his complexion still pale but his eyes regaining a spark. He no longer avoided Lin Ke, no longer hid his illness, no longer ran. He learned to live with his condition and to live for someone. Lin Ke was different. He transformed. From the kid at the bottom of the class, skipping lessons, dozing off, now he sat in the front row, taking notes, mumbling formulas. Teachers were stunned. Classmates gaped. Only Cheng Yi understood. People change when they have a reason to live better. The final exams arrived like a June downpour. The school buzzed with tension. Every student was a soldier thrown into a battlefield of white test papers. On the last exam day, Cheng Yi wore a white shirt, name tag straight, hair neatly trimmed, seated at desk A3. Lin Ke sat 2 rows away. He finished quickly, unusually fast. When the proctor collected the papers, he didn't leave. He waited. When Cheng Yi submitted his test and turned to leave, Lin Ke followed. "See?" He smirked. "I told you. You make me want to try." Cheng Yi smiled softly, a smile free of pain for the first time. He reached out, lacing his fingers with Lin Ke's, "And you make me want to live." The college entrance exams, 2 endless days, finally ended in a blink. Lin Ke passed. Same school as Cheng Yi. Not for the major, not for the prestige, just to see that familiar gaze every morning in the lecture hall. To Lin Ke, Cheng Yi was like sunlight, a gentle yet fierce light, illuminating the darkest corners of his life. And Lin Ke, who'd grown up amid violence, shouts, and falls onto cold concrete, never thought he'd strive for someone. Yet that person chose to leave just as he learned to believe in hope. The first morning of the exams, Cheng Yi stepped through the school gate, clutching his admission ticket. June sunlight spilled golden onto the road, filtering through fiery phoenix trees. He turned back, an unconscious habit, his eyes scanning the crowd, stopping only when he spotted a familiar figure across the street. Lin Ke stood there, faded uniform, backpack slung over one shoulder, holding a water bottle and waving lightly. His smile wasn't wide, but it was real. His eyes lit up seeing Cheng Yi. Not loud, but intense, as if with Cheng Yi there, he could face the world. Cheng Yi lowered his head, smiling, a faint smile hiding the frantic heartbeat, the pain gnawing at his chest daily. During every break between subjects, Lin Ke stood outside the exam gate. Though forbidden, he came. No encouragements, no questions. He just stood there, like a landmark. Each time Cheng Yi stepped out, their eyes met, and that was enough. Enough for Lin Ke to know Cheng Yi was still here, still existing. But Cheng Yi knew what remained in him was fading. The second night, Cheng Yi walked out of the final exam room amid a rush of people. He looked around and saw him. Lin Ke stood by his old motorcycle holding 2 steaming buns. Sweat soaked his collar, his voice was hoarse. "Done?" Cheng Yi nodded, taking the bun but not opening it. He just stood there, looking at Lin Ke. For a long time, a quiet moment enveloped them. The wind tousled their hair. Phoenix petals fell. "What are you going to study?" Cheng Yi asked. "Whatever you study, I'll do that." Lin Ke's voice held no doubt. The answer seemed to have been in his heart for ages, waiting for a nudge to spill out. Cheng Yi laughed, a short, soundless laugh. But his eyes reddened, because he understood. If someone like Lin Ke, who lived recklessly, first tried for someone else, that feeling ran deeper than any confession. And because of that, Cheng Yi feared more. Feared that if he lived, if he got into college, he'd drag Lin Ke into an uncertain future. A future he knew he wouldn't have the strength to see through. The exams ended. The class gathered, snapping photos, laughing, writing yearbooks, planning the last summer break. Only one was missing. Cheng Yi gone. No message, no call, no goodbye. Cut off completely, as if he'd never existed. Lin Ke panicked. He called dozens of times, sent hundreds of texts. The phone just rang, then died. He went to school, asked teachers. Went to Cheng Yi's old boarding house, the hospital where he'd been treated. Everyone shook their heads. No one knew. Despair hit its peak. He went to Cheng Yi's house, the first time he'd stood at that gate. The gate was open, the yard empty. No dogs, no voices. Lin Ke turned to leave when the door opened. Cheng Yi's mother stepped out. She'd aged since he last saw her. Her eyes were swollen, hands trembling as she held a small cloth bag, offering it to him. Yi, he said if he didn't come back in time, to give this to you. Lin Ke took it. His hands shook, not from fear, but from dreading what loomed ahead. Inside was a neatly folded white shirt, the last uniform Cheng Yi wore, and a letter. Her voice choked. She wanted to say more, but only sighed and turned away. Under the banyan tree by the gate, Lin Ke opened the letter. Handwritten, the familiar slanted script, clean but smudged in spots, as if written with shaking hands. I don't need you to be great. I don't need you to be strong. I don't need you to prove anything to anyone. I just need you to live. A short line, but it tore his chest open. Because as long as you're alive, my love isn't dead. Don't look for me. If we're fated, the sun will shine again in Shemen. At the bottom, a small, delicate signature, Cheng Yi. Lin Ke clutched the paper to his chest. The wind blew hard. Banyan leaves scattered around his feet. He looked up at the sky, his eyes wide, hollow with terror. No anger, no screams, no tears. Just silence, a silence that choked. Because only someone who'd known utter loneliness could grasp how much that wordless disappearance hurt. 3 years later, summer. Cicadas hummed along the narrow path to the old high school. Lin Ke stood still before the moss-covered classrooms. The old tiles, the tiny cracks in the walls, the creaking fan, everything was the same. Only one thing differed. The person he'd waited for every morning, the one by that window, was no more. He stepped into the old classroom, 12A1. Desks were neatly arranged. Cheng Yi's desk sat near the window, where sunlight slanted in every morning. When the wind blew, the curtains swayed, as if time hadn't moved. Lin Ke sat there, quietly, like a thief stealing memories. On the desk, he placed an old textbook, worn cover, frayed edges. On it, neat handwriting read, Cheng Yi, 12A1. The letters were still beautiful, but blurred at one corner, perhaps from tears or an old rain that had soaked it. From his pocket, he pulled a yellowed sheet, the letter Cheng Yi left, carried with him for 3 years. Read 100 times, every stroke, every gap memorized, as if it was the only way to keep Cheng Yi in his life. I don't need you to be great, don't need you to be strong, don't need you to prove anything to anyone. I just need you to live. Because as long as you're alive, my love isn't dead. He smiled, but it twisted his lips, awkward and pained like the last 3 years of his life. I'm living now, Cheng Yi. His whisper was faint. 3 years, but why can't anyone hold on to that love for me? The wind blew through the hallway. The letter lifted slightly, settling back on the desk. Lin Ke held it down, as if letting go would let Cheng Yi slip away again, like that summer afternoon. After the college exams, no one told him Cheng Yi had passed, not a word. The heart attack came too suddenly. He collapsed just hours after leaving the final exam room. Everyone thought it was exhaustion, but by the time he reached the hospital, he was gone. The surgery failed. He left quietly, as he'd lived like a breeze passing through Lin Ke's life, leaving a chill he could never shake. Cheng Yi's mother couldn't face telling him. She only hugged his phone, scrolling through unread messages from Lin Ke, crying until she fainted. Then, with her husband, she moved away, taking his ashes and everything that was his. Memories packed in cardboard boxes buried to avoid the pain of his name. For Lin Ke, time stopped that day. He didn't attend college, though he'd passed. The major, the school, he didn't recall. On results day, he didn't check, because the only one he wanted to share it with was gone. 3 years, he worked odd jobs, construction, loading, then landed a gig at a small bookstore. No one understood why someone like him, once a fighter, teetering on the edge of trouble, had grown so quiet. Every morning, he rose early, passing the old Phoenix Line street. Every noon, he sipped tea at a stall near the school. Every night he opened a wooden box. Inside, the letter Cheng Yi's white shirt, a small diary of study notes. Every page, every line he knew by heart, not because he wanted to remember, but because he dared not forget. One July afternoon, heavy rain fell. Lin Ke returned to the old school unannounced, unsaid. He stood under the classroom awning, watching rain lash the hallway. The rain's patter stretched like unending memories. He held out his hand to catch the drops, recalling the first time Cheng Yi pulled away under the desk, the wary, fearful look. The afternoon, Cheng Yi silently turned away, avoiding him like a threat. Cheng Yi had avoided him like a mistake. And now, Lin Ke lived like a man burdened by guilt forever. Guilt for not being fast enough to catch someone dying day by day. Guilt for not being strong enough to hold a faltering heart. He'd thought trying was enough. Thought standing by Cheng Yi, entering the lecture hall together, riding the same bus every morning was enough. But he forgot. Love couldn't cure illness, replace medicine, or turn back time. When Cheng Yi left, he didn't cry. 3 years, and he still hadn't. Just his eyes were emptily terrifying. The rain eased as dusk fell. The last rays pierced the gray clouds, slanting into the classroom. Lin Ke looked up. The faint golden light hit Cheng Yi's desk. Tiny specks danced on the surface. Like Cheng Yi's words, Xiamen is prettiest in summer. When sunlight filters through the trees, it scatters on the desks like falling stars. Now he understood it wasn't Xiamen that was beautiful. It was because Cheng Yi was in Xiamen. Without him, the city was a gray, patchy, desolate canvas. He still lived, still breathed, ate, woke each day, but not truly living, just existing, to keep a promise to the departed. The last ray of the day shone through the window, lighting his face. He looked up. In that brief moment, his eyes seemed to glow, not with hope, but with pain so deep it needed a reason to endure. "You once said," he whispered, "if we're fated, the sun will shine again in Xiamen." Today, the sun was real, but the person was not. 3 years, and the sunlight still fell on this city. Only when summer no longer had Lin Ke's sunlight, no longer the boy named Cheng Yi, who'd entered his heart like the only warm ray in a dark life, once, then extinguished, never to rise again.